impressed by Cyprian and what they've been able to achieve. Really excited to be here. We've got some new machine learning applications of our technology. ActiveGraf is interactive scenario analysis and presentation software. And what we are using now as a use case, just to demonstrate its capabilities, this is one use case among very many in financing, financials, consulting, and elsewhere, is this Python-based machine learning employee burnout prevention strategy predictive dashboard that we have. And just a few words about ActiveGraf. Firstly, the pillars of what we do, we are lightning fast visual modeling with visual control. Basically, we allow the graphs to run the quant. And because most people are visually oriented, some 60,000 times faster does the brain process graphics than text. We don't just use that for static visualizations like traditional tools like Tableau and Power BI and stuff like that, but the graphs actually become controls for the quant as well. And through that, you can tell your story and make good decisions, data-driven decisions, with real-time scenario analysis built right within the presentation. And the third pillar is that this makes insights much more easy, 10 to 50 times the amount of iterations you can do by graphically adjusting your assumptions and looking immediately at the results and impacts than if you were to use the traditional tools of Excel or whatever calculation engine you use. And the most important thing about ActiveGraf actually has nothing to do with the technology. It's a very human psychological impact. If we go into a presentation with this deck that's 50 pages and we go through serially and present and present and present, we give up a big opportunity to involve the audience. And what ActiveGraf does is immediately it establishes dialogue and empathy, because you can go into a presentation and say, decision makers, whether they're clients or internal decision makers, you can say, what are your assumptions? Let's dial those in together, and then let's see what the impact is, rather than saying, this is what we believe to be the case. And that's the most powerful thing about ActiveGraf. And let's get right into it. So this employee burnout prevention dashboard looks just like any machine learning based derived regression analysis. It says that, this basically uses 22,000 records to derive a regression through machine learning, to use that as a forecast for what can happen in terms of the cost of stress in a company. And this small tech company that you might know that we've run this machine learning algorithm on and run forward through our dashboard, shows that their human resources, they have 118,000 employees. Average cost of the employee is 90,000 per year, and they have a 5% churn. The work-related stress estimates of cost are 5,600 for sickness, 10,000 for presenteeism, means they just come in and they go through the motions and do the minimum required. What's the cost of them not being fully engaged due to stress? And then, of course, the turnover cost. And then we have kind of the results, which are the stress-related cost, total HR cost, as to total HR costs, 15%. And then the total cost of this company is $1.6 billion annually of stress and burnout. And so what does management do? Typically, management would get a dashboard just like this, and it'd be static, and then they'd start to talk about it. But this is an ActiveGraf, and this is an ActiveGraf dashboard, and we can say, fine, well, we actually don't think that this fully adequately covers the cost of absenteeism. Let's change our assumptions and see what happens. We can just drag the graph and go to this, and generally accepted wisdom for burnout actually is that the cost of burnout and stress is about 21% of the total HR cost. So you saw that it was updated. It's fully running a machine learning adaptive algorithm on new samples in the background when I change that to recalculate the regression. So this is tied into Python, rerunning it, and basically making it more useful for decision makers, not having to call the data scientist and say, hey, run this version, hey, run that version. And so we can say, okay, well, how do we establish a strategy for preventing burnout? How do we do that? Well, what we do is we take this and say, one of the key determinants of burnout is mental fatigue score based on survey data. You survey your employees, and this is one of the various attributes that leads to burnout, not the only one. And there are about 8 attributes that we used in our machine learning that's running live behind this dashboard as we speak. And we can say, well, if we reduce this fatigue score by 10%, what is the impact? What is the impact on our burnout index? And you'll see that that's about a 0.04 impact on the index. You can see it here. Right away, runs the regression again, runs the new sample data, and cranks it out. We know that if we institute a mental fatigue score reduction program to get 10%, that will reduce our stress-related cost to HR cost to 17%. Good improvement. It will cost us $24 million to run this program, but the net benefit in terms of cost savings is $333 million. But let's just say we as a management and a board want to say, no. We want to get to a burnout index of only 0.35. That's considered healthy by us. How much do we have to invest and how much do we have to reduce the mental fatigue score to get there? And let's just try 25% or 24%. Well, as the case may be, you get it to. Okay, actually 24% gets us there. You saw that I dialed in 24%. What changed? We reduced that mental fatigue score. That in turn reduced the burnout index to 0.35. That reduced the cost of stress to the total HR cost to only 13% of it. And we do need to invest more to get to 24% reduction, though, $57 million, but the return to the company is $800 million with an ROI of 14%. So you see how much more dynamic and better decisions you can use with your machine learning and your AI by running and iterating those algorithms live in decision-making context. So how do we do that? You've seen the impact now and how our ActiveGrafs work. They actually run the quant and immediately show the results, even with machine learning running live, which is quite fast. Let's go to how we do that. This is our technology and our structure. So what we do and what our patent pending technology is data sources, calculation engines, and presentation tools, actually our visualizations. Those three things are dynamically, bidirectionally linked and synchronized in real time. And so not just these graphs change, the entire hub values change, and anything attached to that data and calculation is updated for these scenarios. And so in this case, we had data sources, several of them. We had some data in Excel, some of them in CSV files that were referred into by the Python code, and we had yet other data that was in training data. Then we also had a calculation engine. We had Excel as a calculation, and we also ran Python as a calculation engine. And our presentation tools were the dashboard you saw with our visualizations. Next, I just wanted to show you where we fit into the analytics value chain. So we are not pretending to be a prescriptive analytics tool in the sense of actually running the quant. We are an enablement tool. You don't have to tear anything out. You don't have to replace anything. ActiveGraf layers onto existing tools. And so it's a prescriptive analytics enablement tool. And so you have the value chain here, the descriptive tools, the traditional things like Tableau and Power BI, etc. TIBCO, I wouldn't call traditional, but these are the kind of unidirectional visualization tools that allow you to very elegantly, you look at a lot of data and assume, look at what it means. Then we have the statistical modeling, machine learning AI bits that we, in this example, used Python, but you can use things like Alteryx, SAS, and so forth. Once you have deduced what that means and created, either through regressions or whatever you're using, the predictive algo, you can then articulate that and manipulate that live with ActiveGraf. Next, the problem we solve, basically, I think you probably understand it. How many times you had to say this to a decision maker? We'll take the rest of the assumptions, we'll come back to you with our new analysis, and then the telephone game begins. You tell somebody, that person tells the other person, and the data scientist gets involved, cranks a new thing, and brings it back. It takes time, money, and it's not immediate for sure. Then you can say that also, if you're a decision maker, how long have you had to wait for analysis and ask somebody every time you wanted to run a new scenario? ActiveGraf solves this problem. Just a few more things here. Our value proposition. We accelerate decision making. We have real-time visual modeling. And what it does is it really allows everybody to do what they're best in. Decision makers to make decisions based on best data and analysis. And the analysts, data scientists, can spend time doing their analysis rather than cutting and pasting and updating presentations like some assistant, which is a lot of the time that they use. So our ROI is very high because we save that much time. This is just a sample of what our customers say, that 10 out of 10 for ease of use and power of impact. Showing any variation in real time is a big benefit to an M&A banker that uses our software. And also the time saving and keeping the models. Remember, it's bi-directionally synchronized. So when you change your calculation immediately, the presentation is also updated. So it saves a lot of time. And I just wanted to say about Central Europe and the benefits of Central Europe. I feel like we need to plug that. Microsoft called ActiveGraf one of the most sophisticated uses of Office extensibility framework it's ever seen. And that's thanks to the technology we used from Central Europe. Black Belt, Black Label, Exalt, and iCode are the teams that we used, the best in class for each of what they do. .NET, high charts integrations, UI design, whatever it may be. These are great. I highly recommend people get in touch with these companies. They're awesome. Also, we couldn't have done this without the support of High Ventures, which is an early stage investor based out of Hungary. And we're very thankful to them for giving us our first leg up with our angels together. That's fantastic. And what we learned from doing development in Central Europe is that there's a huge bench strength, and it goes way beyond the basic labor arbitrage of just saying it's cheaper there to do something. They have architects, they have all kinds of higher value added strategic digital capabilities as well in Central Europe that are world class and value for money. One thing that you need to keep in mind if you're going to develop in Central Europe, though, is over-communication is key. So it's not a language thing. It's just a matter of making sure that any cultural differences are kind of diffused by getting in there and making sure that everybody understands everything and the objectives and giving feedback often for the best results. And that's basically all I wanted to say. Thank you, and ready for questions.
Good presentation, quite a few questions. So first one is from Tom Zagrzewski from Aegis Data in New York. How do you connect data to the tool, and how do you choose analytical model?
So we connect data to the tool. Essentially, right now we're integrated through Excel, but through Excel we can reach any large amount of data sets and run data sets, as we did in this case, very large data sets through integration with Python that we do through VBA code. So the connection is essentially through Excel, and the reason we did that is because 90% of decisions in corporate world end up in Excel and PowerPoint, and Excel has the most connectivity to whether it's ERP systems, analytics, other analytics tools, or data sets. So it's the best thing to actually just stably interface with, and it was a shortcut to doing that. And sorry, what was the second part of the question, Tom?
Well, here's the next question. I'm going to go to the next question because there are a few. This is from Subarayoti Bose from Hartman in Stuttgart.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the target users of the tool? Does this come with pre-developed models?
Yeah, so we have pre-developed models just as templates so that it resonates with people, but you can put this onto any calculation that you have. So there's no pre-developed templates that you need to use, and that's one of our biggest advantages. Because some other software has some minor graphic manipulation of quant, like SAS has a module, but you have to be part of that full suite. With ActiveGraf, you can layer it onto using Excel, and then through Excel, other calculation, MATLAB, whatever other else you want to use it through Excel, but there are no set models that you have to use. There's no strictures. You can use it with existing Excels even, or existing analysis that you have, and layer it right on there.
Okay, next question. Petri Hassinen from Helsinki, Valmet. I think there's a lot to do with personal data and respecting that. All HR function will probably say yes, but how about if this can be done? And to make this next level, you need a lot of ground data. What is it?
So just one thing to clarify about our target market, Tom. Our target markets are financial institutions, consulting firms, and C-suite decision making. So we are that's the kind of universe that we're looking at. This specific use case is HR, but the use cases are all that we do. We treasury, marketing, derivative sales, simulating management consulting firms, simulating the impact of what their operational consulting was and showing variations thereof. There's no kind of stricture as to the templates.
Okay.
But that was that question.
Yeah. Next question. Martin Treder from Boehringer Ingelheim in Germany. How do you provide transparency, and why should a CEO trust in the bars your dashboard displays?
Well, the simple answer is they don't have to trust in the bars or dashboard displays. All bars only show what their analysts put together. What we do is we increase the velocity of information and usefulness. The actual analysis is what they would look at anyway. It's just they would be looking at it in a static way without it being as useful by being able to change assumptions. That's all. So the same exact thing happens from a compliance point of view, from a data security point of view, from every other point of view. ActiveGraf is the same as what is already going on now. It just is the engine that facilitates the velocity of analysis and information. So the analysis doesn't change. It's not you don't have to believe us. We're just providing the mechanism and the tool to be able to manipulate the data live and making it more useful.
Okay, I think the next question related to that from Mark National Nederlanden in Bucharest. How do you safeguard data governance?
Yeah, so the same way, there is no incremental digital data footprint of ActiveGraf. In fact, ActiveGraf resides on the machines and uses their same authorizations as already is in place today, right next to any other software on their machine. It can access the cloud if you have cloud access through your Python or whatever else you're running, but by definition, it is there within the machine. So there's no incremental data footprint, which is one of the big things. One of the first questions a management consulting firm asks us, does it by necessity access your servers or put any incremental data out into your servers or the cloud in any way? And the answer is no. It runs right on the machine. And it facilitates this and synchronizes everything right on each machine. So you know from a data governance and security point of view, there's no incremental footprint.
Okay, I think last question, Tom Zagrzewski again from Aegis Data. There are a number of different regression models available. How do you choose which model should be run?
Well, The answer is I don't, you do. So whatever you're running and regression models are run, the analytics that you do is the analytics that you do. ActiveGraf can manipulate anything. And so we are not in the business of telling you what is the best regression model and fit for certain types of data. That's what your data scientist figures out. What we do is we facilitate the work of the data scientist and making it much more beneficial by democratizing it and literally allowing anybody, literally anybody, including decision makers to the lowest level in the company, to iterate even the most complex quant. But the quant itself has to come from the data scientists that actually do it, and we can layer onto anything. So we're not saying that we have some expertise in-house on how to do these things, obviously, but it's all with a view to supporting the tool and helping our clients to do best in class. But the tool itself just facilitates the velocity of that information and the use and iteration of those calculations in a very easy to use way.
Okay, great. We're going to wrap up. Laszlo, good presentation. Thanks. And GRID members, thanks for very good questions as well. Laszlo, you're off. Fingers crossed for the awards tonight. Stick around for the next hour and see if you win.